When it comes to horror, mystery, suspense, and goth, there's no one more influential than Edgar Allan Poe. Often misunderstood, this literary icon was as much an enigma as the characters in his writings. We're going to take a look into some of his poems and short stories, as well as the events in his extraordinary life, and uncover some of the mystery that is Edgar Allan Poe. First published in 1839 in Burton's Gentleman's Magazine while Poe was living in Philadelphia. The story is only in part based on two real people, James Campbell Usher and Agnes Pyer Usher, who were both actors and close friends of Poe's biological mother, Eliza Poe. The two were orphaned in 1814 and were reported to have grown up as neurotics, lacking the ability to regulate their anxiety and stress. Although little is known about the real Usher siblings, Roderick Usher's condition of constant fear is consistent with the neurotic tendencies of his real-life counterpart. Poe may have drawn influence from Samuel Warren's Thunderstruck, a passage in Diary of a Late Physician that includes many similarities to Poe's tale. Both stories have a beautiful young lady fall into a cataleptic trance, die, and emerge from a coffin covered in blood. The story is the epitome of American Gothic, incorporating elements of macabre, fear of the unknown, and psychological horror, all taking place inside of a dark and ominous mansion. So, let's summarize the story. It begins with a letter from Roderick Usher to his long-lost boyhood friend, as the narrator approaches the House of Usher on a dull, dark, and soundless day. This house is gloomy and mysterious. The house is decaying in places, and there is a small crack from the roof to the ground in the front of the building. The narrator mentions that the Usher family, though an ancient clan, has never flourished. Only one member of the Usher family has survived from generation to generation, thereby forming a direct line of descendancy without any outside branches. The Usher family has become so identified with its estate that the peasantry confuses the inhabitants with their home. The narrator arrives to find his childhood friend in disarray. His twin sister, Madeline, is ill, appearing to be on death's door. None of the doctors can figure out her malady, and her sickness is a mystery. Roderick is also plagued by a mental decline, an acute heightening of the senses, and extreme nervousness. He says the house is haunted and is troubling him. The narrator tries to comfort his friend by playing music and even reading to him, all to no avail. His sister passes away. Roderick is afraid that if he doesn't hide her body, scientists will take it in order to study the nature of her strange illness. So the two men place her body in a coffin and hide it inside of a chamber sealed by iron doors. 2 weeks have passed. In order to further console his friend, the narrator reads him a story, The Mad Tryst, a medieval story about a knight and a dragon. As they read the story, the house seems to make noises that correspond with the story. When the knight forces his way into the dwelling, both the narrator and Roderick hear a loud ripping sound. A shield falls from the wall, and the two men hear a loud metallic banging. Roderick becomes flush with anxiety. He says he's been hearing the noises for days, and he believes that it's Madeline. The bedroom door is then violently kicked open. It is Madeline. She is covered in blood and charges towards Roderick. In her rage, she expires. Roderick, overcome by fear, follows her to death's door and passes. The narrator runs out of the house. As he exits, he can see the crack on the outside widening as moonlight shines through it. The house crumbles to the ground, ending both the house and the Usher family. As with many of Poe's stories, the point of view is told from the perspective of an unreliable narrator. An unreliable narrator is an untrustworthy storyteller, most often used in narratives with a first-person point of view. The point of it is that you can't always tell what's true and what isn't. The narrator is a childhood friend of Roderick, and although they haven't seen one another in a very long time, the narrator is summoned to Roderick's aid because of a growing mental calamity. The narrator is at first the voice of reason and offers the reader exposition of the setting and the characters. However, he begins to exhibit similar neurotic tendencies as Roderick, lending doubt to his account of the events. This shift blurs the lines between reality and imagination, leaving the reader unsure of what is really going on. Roderick is the last male heir to the Usher estate. He has no children, and neither does his twin sister Madeline. When they die, so does the Usher name. The only thing left is the giant mansion they reside in. Roderick lives in parallel with his sister. As her physical health deteriorates, so does his mental health. Roderick informs his friend, the narrator, that he is concerned about his mental state. He tells the narrator that his senses are more acute, but that his malady has become overwhelming. As Roderick's twin sister, Madeline is the only other surviving heir to the Usher family. Like her brother, she is childless, and also like her brother, she is suffering from an illness, although hers is of the physical nature. She is unable or unwilling to acknowledge the narrator's presence in the house, just ignoring him and her brother, gliding about the house as though she is a ghost. Although the Usher house may not be a human being, it seems to exhibit behavior alongside the Usher twins. When they are breaking, so does their home. All that is left of the family is the house, and when the twins die, so does their dwelling place. Poe uses a technique called doubling, which emphasizes people, places, and ideas by creating parallels. At the beginning of the story, the mansion is seen as well as its reflection in the water, effectively showing it twice. Roderick and Madeline are twins. They are both suffering from an illness, and they both die at the same time. When the narrator reads the book, the house mimics the events of the story in the family name, and the house collapses at the same time. As in many of Poe's stories, the fall of the House of Usher deals with mental illness. Much like the narrator in The Telltale Heart, Roderick Usher is overcome with an unknown mental malady, giving his senses a certain hyperactivity. His anxiety is high and is even contagious as the narrator eventually begins to elicit symptoms similar to his friend. The mental illness also adds to the ambiguity of the story. When the narrator begins to feel the tension and anxiety that Roderick feels, the reliability of the narrator is in doubt. This blurs the lines between what is real and what is not. The story is classic Poe and falls under the American Gothic literary style. This includes themes of rationality versus irrationality. We can see this when the narrator is reading to Roderick and the house seems to respond to the story in the book. It is hard to tell if it is merely a coincidence or if the events are really the house communicating. There is an immense sense of guilt when Roderick can't shake the feeling that he has buried his sister alive. His fears are confirmed when she returns from the grave. There are supernatural implications in the story. Somehow, Madeline was able to penetrate the iron doors and return from the grave. The house seemed to talk to them, and of course, the house collapses when the family perishes, proving destiny to have the final say in the family's name and posterity. The Fall of the House of Usher is one of Poe's most famous stories, and if you like scary, creepy, and gothic, then this should be one of your first choices. Be sure to visit poemovies.com to use our free lesson plans. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to get updates on new content.